to have flow, there needs to be a balance of challenge to mastery. So it's hard to, if you're just starting something, if you've never worked in engineering before and you start an engineering project, you're probably going to be overwhelmed all the time and it's going to suck. But if you're working in a domain that you have a degree of excellence, but also you're choosing a problem that challenges you, that's a component that's necessary for flow, because it's an evolutionary driver that like when there is uncertainty and or like danger, quote unquote danger present, it drives us into the present moment, and we turn off that fear center of our brain because our brain is optimizing for solution finding. So if we can, one, work on something that's challenging, but also if we can manufacture like a sense of do or die. Like I love doing time blocking that's like really well tracked, like running, there's some great apps you can use on your phone that say like, I'm going to set this thing that like physically locks my phone for 45 minutes and I can't get up from this task until that 45 minutes is over. Or saying like, if I don't check off all these boxes today, I'm going to donate $100 to a cause or something. But when you have that, like you're up against a wall feeling, subconsciously it drives you right. You don't get to waste those brain cycles on like, do I really want to do it? Do I have to? Do I need a break? You know, like our brain, like when you look at those people who run like 200 miles nonstop, it gives us this perspective of how crazy powerful the human body is. And it really is just our mind that we allow to convince us that we need more comfort or balance or whatever. And those things are all important in their own realms. But just to say that really flow is like management of the mind.
So would that stress that you have to manufacture, would that be considered a hormetic stress, like hormesis, so that it's a positive thing that, I suppose if you stayed in that stressful state, you'd be in the sympathetic nervous system and it would be detrimental, but you're not staying there. You're using that as a means to an end to get into a flow state, which would be a parasympathetic state.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I don't personally seek out to create the feeling of stress. Sometimes I can slip into flow. Like if I'm like super clear on what I need to execute on, and this is all part of flow, this is a whole degree of like minimizing uncertainty in terms of execution and like strategy. Like you can have uncertainty because it's something new that you're doing, but having a super clear plan is like critical for the most part for flow. And when you, oh my God, I'm totally blanking on your question. Can you remind me of what your question was? I got so excited about my answer that I forgot.
Well, I'm talking about hormesis and whether the stress that you put in is a hormetic stress.
Yes. Okay. I remember where I'm at. So if you, like my North Star is just to make it as easy as possible to just slip in that rut. That rut's not a great word for it, but essentially slip into that state of flow. So if I've done my job and this is something that I feel comfortable, like I'm working on something that I feel really comfortable in, you can oftentimes surpass that discomfort, but almost always, nearly always, unless you're really checking in with your body and it's like, okay, I've been like going really hard lately, I need to give myself a break, you will move beyond that. Like just knowing, I literally keep a note that says something to the degree of like, just remember that state of like bliss lies right beyond the discomfort. You know, like and in reading some books on peak performance really helped me transform this. Like I highly again recommend go read all of Stephen Colliers' books, are great. But it helped me really just like embody this knowing that like, yes, this is uncomfortable, but it literally is like a 10, 20 minute thing usually. Well, and the more you get to know your body, the more you get to know if like, oh, am I going to get through this in 10 or 20 minutes? Or do I literally just need to go take an hour off and rest and then come back super recharged?
Well, and this has application in the short term as well as the long term. Like I think about people that have a dream in their heart, doing something, opening a business, losing weight, you name it. And I feel like sometimes people, they give up right before the big success was going to happen. And it's almost invariable that had they gotten into this flow state that you're talking about, that they would not allow themselves to get derailed like that. Hey guys, you know I'm all about healthy nutrition, and I have a brand new product I want to tell you about called Athletic Greens. This is not just a multivitamin. It has 75 essential elements that you want to have in your diet, from probiotics to greens to digestive enzymes to prebiotics. There's so many things that they pack into the Athletic Greens. The main reason why I love them is it puts it all in one place. Like literally you'd have to a la carte buy all of these different supplements, and they do it all in one package. So if you go to athleticgreens.com/Jimmy, and you can get a special discount if you go there, and the discount is you get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D as well as some of their travel packs. Go check it out, you guys. athleticgreens.com/Jimmy.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting you frame it up that way, because like I don't believe that flow state, it's not going to solve your problems, right? Like it's not going to make one time of getting into flow state is not going to make or break anything. But certainly, like I love flow because it marries together productivity and wellness. That's what I love about it, because I used to be into like the David Goggins thing, and I think it's great. It's great in some degree, but it burns people out and it's not sustainable. So I think what you're bringing up is really about like, it's really this conversation of like, how do we set goals and hit them, but do it in a really pragmatic, sustainable way.
Well, and it's the methodicalness of pursuing the goal, not this run and then run out of gas right here and the goal's right here. But if you just done the little tortoise instead of the hare, you would have got there. I think what I hear you say is flow state kind of keeps you chill in the midst of the pursuit.
Yeah, certainly. And I came to find and really connect with this work because like anxiety was something I was super predisposed to. So like for me, I lived in fight or flight most of my life, living in a really unsettled household that was like an emotionally unsafe place. So those triggers still live in me, and it's really easy for me to get like triggered by my environment. So like, again, like all this stuff is super practical. Like what is practicing flow state? It's just adopting daily practices that essentially ground you, right? Like journaling, meditating, yoga, whatever the things are that you resonate with. Like for me, it's just making sure I have those intentionally slotted into my day. And also I'm present to just check in with myself. Like, okay, I did an hour work sprint. Check in with myself. I'm giving myself 20 minutes to rest until my next one. What does my body need right now? Does it need a walk around the block? Does it need some stretching? Does it need me to just like lay down and listen to some binaural beats? You know? And it's just like that practice for me is what prevents burnout, because you're keeping your cup full.
So is it intuitive to get into this, or do you kind of have to structure it for a while until it becomes a habit? They always talk about, I know Stephen Covey always talks about 21 days to change a habit. Is that what it is? You need to structure it for a bit of time, then it just becomes a part of who you are?
Yeah, certainly. Like your ability to get into flow is a muscle like anything else, you know. But it's a complex problem that you're solving for. But the more and more that you solve for it, the more and more you get to know yourself, and the more easy it will be to happen, right? So it's so multifaceted, because it goes to like, do you have a consistent routine that you're getting into? It is like all these. So like you have your structure, your frame. Like, am I learning to get up at the same times? Am I going to bed at the same times? Am I eating meals at similar times? So we have, again, like less uncertainty, more like the more and more. I love freedom and flexibility and adventure and all that, but I firmly believe that there's a place for like, we optimize our energy when the brain has less conscious decisions to make every day. So the more that we can automate the things that don't necessarily make or break our life, like flow is going to be so much easier when we like, because like, again, over time, these practices like that we're bringing up, yoga, meditation, breath work, if these are new to you, they're going to be hard and they're going to require energy. So you may even start feeling overwhelmed. And again, this is like exactly to that point you made about people giving up. Keep persisting. Like if you're like, oh no, this is leaving me more stressed because I'm having to get up and meditate and do breath work, and I'm going into work feeling stressed. Well, your body is learning how to do these things. So again, it's like, you don't have to be perfect off the bat. Like I think 1% better a day is all we're shooting for. But over time being like, yeah, now I wake up and I literally can't not do all my practices because I just know how good I feel, and now they're automatic. So over time, certainly you become the thing.
Although an interesting monkey wrench that I'm swirling in my head while we're talking here is personality differences. There are some people that they need every little part of their day structured in 5-minute increments. And like you were late to the interview today because you were overtime with a client right before. And so it kind of threw me off because my schedule is pretty tight as well.
Sure.
But I'm schedule tight per se. I'm more of the kind of loosey-goosey, go with the flow. I know what needs to get done, and I don't put that pressure of time restraints on myself, but I'm still very good at what I do. Like, how do you reconcile those differences of like personality with getting people into this flow state?
Yeah. And again, like great point you're bringing up. And that's like what I brought up at the very beginning of like, never flow state or routine or habit just for the sake of it, right? So I would check in with you and I would say, like, what are your goals, or like what are you struggling with? Like, is it not if it's not a problem, if you're fully aligned, great. But if you say, oh yeah, like I like to be more free flowy, but you're stressed and you're not producing, I would challenge you. And I would say, like, well,
Right.
just 'cause you're not that guy, maybe that's a belief we need to look at and try out a more structured approach.
Yes. Although I will say some people that are that real strict in their schedule type, they're frustrated by people like me who are more loosey-goosey because they're like, you should be this way. And I'm sure as a coach helping your clients with this, it can be a challenge sometimes because you have to figure out which of those personalities they are so that you can best help them and get them into the flow state with their person.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think at that point it really comes down to just like all of coaching is just asking the right questions, right? It's never like here's the answer. It's like what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what do you feel connected to, like of all these practices and structures, like what resonates with you, and allowing them to. I think it's always great for the person to check in with themselves and say, how can I structure this in a way that I'm going to succeed? And of course, being there to, if they've never done it before, being there to like make recommendations and ultimately being the guide and the leader, but ensuring that it resonates with them, certainly.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention your website, and I love the name, by the way, lifeonfire.io/coaching if you want to hire Delaney as a coach. But another thing that you mentioned about getting in this flow state is it helps to reduce the time it takes to learn by 50%. Is it because of some of what we were just talking about, that kind of automated, free up parts of your brain to soak in information and absorb it and be able to regurgitate it faster? Is it because you're more in automated mode with these things that really should be automated, yet a lot of people don't make them automated?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I want to point to the study that this comes from because it's really, really fascinating. So the Marines partnered with one of like the brain monitoring agencies in the United States. They did this study where these new Marine recruits trained in, half of them trained in flow, half of them trained not in flow. And learning how to be a sniper shooter is like a super complex thing, right? To be a master at it. And mastery, again, like quote unquote, takes what, 10,000 hours is what we're told. That's like the benchmark. And they showed in this study that those who learned how to get into flow before they would train mastered the art of shooting in half the time, which is like really, really profound. And my understanding of how this all works is when we're learning something new or really doing anything, the degree to which the experience is emotional, the brain creates deeper new neural networks in our mind. So if you're learning something, if something happens to you and either it's like insanely like a huge fear response, like this is trauma, right? So if you go through something traumatic, it gets burned into your brain and it influences you so deeply because it's a mechanism of like, this was an important experience. So it was an intense experience. So it must be really important. So I need to remember it forever. So
Wow.
yeah, right. So while that's a pain, while it can be something intensely bad that creates like memory, the more elevated our emotional state is also going to create even more deeply rooted new networks in our mind. So when you're training in flow, you're elevating your emotional state. Physiologically, you're also just like when you're doing these things, you're just like optimizing your machine, right?
Yeah.
So more blood is flowing through your brain, more oxygen is flowing through your brain, so things are moving and firing faster. So you literally are accessing more brain power.